So for 2025, the best 10 cars, the top 10 in sales, preliminary figures are starting to come out now. And well, there are a few points that catch my attention. As for number one, as expected, it's Toyota. With a 2.6% increase over the previous year, they're number one. What really stands out, of course, is the EVs. BYD, for example, has overtaken Ford and is now in 6th place, with a 12.4% increase over the previous year. That's a significant jump. So BYD is now ranked 6th, and what caught my attention even more is Geely in 10th place. With a 46.8% increase over last year, they've made it into the top 10. The way Honda is in 8th place and Nissan is in 9th, which means BYD has already surpassed both Honda and Nissan. And at this pace, Geely will probably overtake Honda and Nissan as well. So I think it's likely that Geely will be in 8th place this year. Yes, we're seeing a real shake-up in the rankings, and what I find truly symbolic here is that BYD is now poised to overtake Tesla and become the best. That's also coming into play. In a sense, BYD's strategy is like Toyota's, but for EVs, they've steadily increased their sales using this approach. What I find interesting about Geely is that they've acquired Volvo and Lotus, and the way they sell these brands is by never damaging the Volvo brand, but rather preserving what makes Volvo unique. Yes, and they're skillfully achieving electrification by leveraging Geely's technological capabilities, and with Lotus as well, that's right. Lotus is truly gorgeous and their engines are really excellent. They're an iconic sports car manufacturer, but now making the most of what makes Lotus great, their main lineup is basically two-seaters. So if Lotus were to make an EV, it would be based on that concept. And I imagine they've given designers a lot of freedom to create something that feels distinctly Lotus. They're selling an EV that embodies the Lotus spirit, and it's been selling well. I also, what was it called again? I think it was the Electra. I kind of forgot the name, but anyway, I had the chance to test drive it, and my impression was that it's a really well-made car. Well, it is an expensive car. That said, it's priced similarly to the Model X, but it comes with features that are on par with, or even exceed, those of the Model X. So it's equipped with all the specs you can think of right now. And for those who know, you'll realize that Lotus is actually under the Geely umbrella. People who aren't really car enthusiasts or just regular folks probably don't know this. There actually aren't that many people who realize that Volvo is also under Geely. So in that sense, while making use of the brand, they're also properly inheriting and applying the strengths and technologies of EVs in their car manufacturing. I think this approach is really interesting for humanity as a whole, and Japanese manufacturers as well. I think Japanese manufacturers could also adopt the methods that Geely has used. As for Toyota, I believe they can absolutely go their own unique way. I'm sure they can compete on their own. But for companies a bit lower down like Nissan or, for example, Mazda, well, maybe even Honda could be in that group. Although Honda is properly teaming up with Sony to try to launch EVs, and the company is clearly moving toward EVs. Still, there are cases where things aren't going so well too. Well, I think it's inevitable that companies are struggling during this period of transition, but as for Nissan and Mazda, they've formed joint ventures with Chinese companies and are actually able to produce EVs locally. In fact, Nissan's N7 model is selling extremely well. When I say extremely well, I mean it's selling about 10,000 units a month, so that's around 100,000 units a year. And the reason they're able to achieve this is because they're utilizing local Chinese technology. They're actually able to produce high-quality cars at a low price. I believe the price is in the 2.3 million yen range. If this were available in Japan, I think it would sell like crazy. But even if it does not make its way here, strategically, by leveraging this Chinese technology and making use of the Nissan brand, they could expand into Asia and similar markets. I also think Mazda should probably do the same. By partnering with Chinese companies, they're able to produce solid EVs, so selling those globally, selling from China to the world, is the kind of approach they should be exploring from now on. I believe that if Japanese manufacturers do this, they can survive as well. In fact, Suzuki is now trying to sell vehicles made in India to the world. The EV called EVX is made in India, but they're OEMing it to Toyota, selling it in Europe, and it's even sold in Japan. There's nothing strange about that. In the same way, whether the production base is in India or China doesn't really matter. What's important is the corporate philosophy. As long as Nissan is clear about what kind of cars it makes, and Mazda is clear about what kind of cars it makes, then even if they use that technology to build cars, those cars will still firmly be Nissan vehicles, no matter where they're made. It's not about where they're sold or whose technology is used, but rather about having the policy that when we make a car, this is what it is. By building cars with that mindset, I believe they will be well received by users. So from now on, Japanese manufacturers' cars made in China may become quite strong in the global market depending on the strategies they take. Conversely, the technology of Chinese EVs is already a step ahead. People say that it's indispensable, but I think we have to accept that we have no choice but to use it. Well, I believe Toyota can go its own way, and I think Honda can too. As for Nissan, since they're already making the Leaf, I think they can manage as well. However, considering their current financial situation and other factors, Nissan seems to be taking a dual approach, developing their own vehicles while also partnering with Chinese companies, especially to target the Asian market. Whether this strategy will succeed or not will become an important point going forward. That's what I thought. Honestly, I think it's good to partner up with companies like Geely. There are still manufacturers who haven't been able to produce in China, so for those companies, forming partnerships quickly or merging with companies like Geely could become a possibility. In that sense, the moves made by BYD are something to keep an eye on. Also, it's going to be important to see how Japanese manufacturers will roll out their EVs in the future. How they will expand their EV business. When you're in Japan, you often hear about EVs. Even in the news lately, it's been reported that various companies are running deficits, not just Japanese manufacturers, but others as well. Many reports say the reason for these losses is that EVs aren't doing well, but actually this is quite misleading, you could say. People tend to think they're in the red because they shifted to EVs. But in reality, investing in EVs requires upfront costs. It's absolutely essential, a necessary step in my opinion. It's true that EVs aren't doing well, and I think one factor is that they're losing out to Chinese cars. But I believe Toyota has managed to navigate this situation well. When everyone was moving toward EVs, they've properly capitalized on the profitability of hybrids, selling them well and generating record high sales and profits, and then smoothly transitioning to EVs. I think they've handled it very skillfully. In contrast, other manufacturers have gone all in on EVs, and while they're still experimenting and figuring things out, this is just a transitional phase. It's not that they're in the red because the EV market is shrinking. As the market expands, they're taking on challenges and making changes, and inevitably, this transitional phase results in losses. I think it's more accurate to view it from this perspective. So when you watch the news, please keep in mind that it's not simply that companies are in the red because the EV market isn't growing. It's not that all the companies that shifted their focus to EVs are now running deficits. Rather, in this transitional period, they have to invest in technological innovation and facilities. And while sales may not be as high as expected, it's better to recognize that these losses are just part of the transition. That's how I see it, yes. So today, since the 2025 Best 10 by manufacturer rankings have been released, I talked about that. I'd like to continue sharing information like this with you in the future as well. Thank you very much.